If you don't stay down and you never quit, come on over here and sit on the far end of the bench.
Oh man, tisk. I mean, what did we say? You couldn't lose. You couldn't lose this game again. This was it. This was the one chance. And I'm glad that we get to start here because I kind of already have been on a couple different shows. I talked about it on Talking the Gridiron. I was on with Jordan last night for Ohio Sports Talk. Welcome everybody, episode 209 of the Far End of the Bench podcast at FUOTB Pod. Make sure you like, subscribe, join us here on the Far End of the Bench. Become a bench warmer. Really helps out when you check out the videos and everything like that. But we just got to start off with the elephant in the room. Nico already kicked things off. Ohio State loses to Michigan in the Horseshoe, 13-10. 4 years in a row, the rivalry has gone Michigan's way. The game goes to Michigan. This was supposed to be the year. 21-point favorites for Ohio State. At home. Michigan doesn't have a quarterback. Their quarterback threw for a grand total of 65 yards, 2 interceptions. One in a back-breaking situation where all you needed to do was just throw the ball like 25 more yards because I guess it was windy, and then maybe your kicker has a shot to put you up. But I guess you're still tied. But no, you couldn't do that. You had to prove to everybody, there's very few signs that somebody has gotten in your head other than you cannot even – it's not even a situation where Ryan Day has to beat Michigan. I said this last night. I've heard this being said about on other places too. He is so far bent out of shape with this Michigan-Ohio State rivalry. It's not enough for him just to win the game anymore. He has to win in Ohio State's in Michigan's fashion. They have to play that style of football. And guess what? That was the worst game plan that you could have rolled out there in this situation. And it cost the senior class a chance at their one shot to finally beat Michigan and flip the narrative and change things, go to the Big Ten championship. You're sitting at home for 3 more weeks now.
And look, Ohio State will be in the playoff. Obviously, unless something absolutely insane happens, which it's basically all the insane scenarios are basically over with. So it's very, very small possibility they're not playing in the first round of the playoffs come second week or third week of December. But at the same time, like when you see your head coach have that look on his face after a game when the whole fight on the field is happening, like what happened? Just the flat face where he's just not looking at anything and just not even fighting or anything. I'm not going to butcher his name. Sharon Moore was right in the thick of it, getting his guys out of there. Ryan Day, you could visibly see just stand there and watch Michigan plant the flag in the middle of the field. And look, it's. Do I think the planting of the flag in the middle of the field is a little overplayed? Yeah, a little bit, but that's just rivalry week. Don't lose at home. Don't lose at home.
They didn't get all that bent out of shape when Baker Mayfield did it. They didn't get bent out of shape about it. I know why they were bent out of shape, and I get
it's rivalry week for a reason. You lose at home, you should have to deal with consequences. You should deal with consequences, especially when you're a 21-point deficit. Every single team that planted the flag in the midfield won on the road. On the road. You're at home. You're supposed to protect your own. Look, if you're a Texas A&M, and we'll throw this into this conversation as well. Like, Texas came in, just had a way better game plan. Texas A&M had a few shots, but really just they were just happy.
I have never been wronger on a take than I was earlier this season on Texas A&M because that game proves that they're a ways off. I think Mike Elko will put that program in a good. They're C-tier. They're lower than Indiana is in the power rankings of these two super conferences that we're seeing. Indiana would, I think, beat them by probably about 14 points. Maybe the athletes even that up a little bit, but they proved this weekend that that's not. They're kind of a paper tiger. They're just not there.
They're not Oregon, Texas level, and hell, they're not even Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama level. They're that next crop of teams, unfortunately. That's not even a bad thing.
They're just above Vandy. I would say they're probably just above Vandy right now.
I would say they are because Vandy has had a horrible, horrible history of all time. But yes, they're right there. But yeah, this rivalry week showed that obviously anybody can beat anybody, and I think that. I seriously, I said this from the very beginning of the season. Oregon and Texas are the two teams that you're going to look at and be like, you know what, these are probably two of the best teams in the country, and it probably is very, very obvious that one of those two teams will be playing in the national championship come January. Yeah. But at the same time, like, there's not a clear cut team that other teams that you could see that are easily going to be in the national championship. I can't say same thing about Georgia. They struggled against Georgia Tech, that 8 overtime game.
Good old fashioned fist fight. I love that game.
Exactly.
Except for the way that it ended.
Exactly. 8 overtime game. I don't have that much faith in Alabama. They're going to squeeze in. Miami has basically already been kicked to the curb. And the committee has already said that losing your conference championship is not going to affect your standing in the playoffs. So that means Miami's gone. Syracuse just knocked Miami out. So it's going to be Clemson. Clemson has a backdoor chance of getting in, which is even wilder now.
If Clemson wins, I think them and SMU both have a chance. There would be a chance that them and SMU both get in, and Alabama does end up getting snubbed because they, again, what you just said, they're not going to take into effect losing in the conference championship game, and you can't put a 2-loss conference championship loser ahead of a 3-loss Alabama team who didn't make their conference championship. These are all, I mean, I think that right now, if things play out the way that I think people are expecting, SMU is expected to take care of business there, and then that leaves a few extra spots for these other SEC teams. If SMU loses to Clemson, if Dabo has that ACC voodoo, that solidifies, I think, 11 of the 12 spots, and we're only going to see one team that has the possibility for that one at-large bid as the last seed that gets in. And I think that would probably be SMU.
Let me say two things here. I would be very surprised if the committee decided to pick SMU over Alabama. I am just going to put that frankly, because what they did with already putting them above Miami, who has same amount of more wins and probably same amount of good victories as Alabama, and they already put them above them. Like, I'd be very, very surprised, and I would not be surprised at all if Clemson wins, because it's just what Cade Klubnik has showed a couple games throughout the year that he could be a really, really good quarterback and take teams to promised land. Clemson lost this past week, and they snuck their way into the ACC championship.
That's the biggest backdoor I've ever. That's the biggest backdoor I've ever seen. They are so poor compared to what they've been in the past, yet they're still probably, I mean, they're going to be right there. They're going to be right down to the wire. I don't know.
It's winning in. It's literally winning in.
That's all it is. Winning in for them. Winning in for them, and I think SMU's probably treating it the same way. I think that you're probably right. I think that they probably see themselves as, there's no way, especially given the history. I think that they're going to need to figure out a way to, like, make this a national system where there's tiebreakers and we have an understanding of what losses and what wins actually mean more, the same way that they do in the NFL. But right now, SMU's got to be looking at themselves like, we're already a program that's had the death penalty put upon us. We're just now getting back to relevance. This is our first season in a Power 5 conference, and we're in the conference championship. But if we don't win, there's very little chance that we're going to get the benefit of the doubt, whether we prove that we were one of these top 12 teams all season or not. I think that's where the conversation is going to lie, is this committee is put together by a bunch of humans. So the one thing that you can never account for is the human factor. That's why the BCS was the way that it was for as long as it lasted, because it was a computer system. You can't argue with a computer. You can argue with the 20 guys or whatever that all have their own conference, their own school allegiances, making this playoff committee. Like, it's ridiculous. Right now, the selection criteria is so all over the place. I'm so happy that we get the 12-team format, but there's so many teams that do still have a fighting argument. Like, if you put Alabama in there, what are you going to look and say to Ole Miss? Ole Miss whooped you at home. Well, how are you going to say? I mean, I know that the Rebels lost a couple bad games, but Alabama lost a few bad games. That Vandy team ended up being very middle of the road. That was a really good performance by them. They lost the road game. They lost to Oklahoma on the road. That was a terrible performance against the team they didn't even score a touchdown against. So, like, there's all of these different backdoor conversations that I think we can get ourselves into.
They're proving this year again that frankly, it doesn't matter who the fuck is where when it comes to middle of the road teams. If you've seen Alabama or Georgia or a I don't know, if Michigan was in this conversation, you throw Michigan in this conversation, or Ohio State. If you're a big name school that has been there, done that, they're going to take that into account. That's unfortunately that's just the precedent that's been set. And what I thought was interesting, I'm not sure if it was Klatt that said this or it might have been somebody else that said, I don't remember exactly, but they brought up the conversation of, well, they already need to get rid of the 4 automatic buys being conference champions. I think that's a complete false because I think Boise State, if you win your conference, just playing out, and Boise State, unless something crazy happens, will be that team in. And your Boise State SMU, you beat. Yeah, you're not in the SEC. Yeah, you're not in the Big Ten. You still ran the table and played an extra game more than Notre Dame, an extra game more than Alabama, extra game more than Ohio State, and you should.
I'll throw this one in there too, Tennessee, because we got Tennessee fans in there, and I know Tennessee had a good end of their season. Nico Iamaleava silenced a lot of things, but I think Tennessee is right there with Indiana as a lower tier below any of these other teams that we're talking about as true title contenders. We're going to get one Cinderella team, which is going to be a lot of fun. There's just not going to be more than one Cinderella run, and it's going to be who gets the hottest thing. And it honestly right now looks like Ohio State might be that Cinderella run because they're going to be on the road all the way throughout. They didn't get the bye that they were expecting to at least have a chance to play for. So
let's also put this in perspective. The teams with the bye played an extra game than most of the teams in the playoff. Let's not forget like that. You're rewarding a team that obviously played an extra game more than other teams, right? If you like I said, Penn State when they play Oregon in the Big Ten championship, for instance, like they have something to play for. You don't want to have to play another game. You take this is your one game. You take it off. We're really going to see that. I won't dive into too much bracketology until we have that show later on this month. But like there may be a conversation where the bye either hurts teams or absolutely helps teams because, like we said, that 4th seed is going to be maybe the worst spot possible because Notre Dame has looked very, very good thus far. They're more than likely going to be the 5th seed, if not Ohio State. And like some of these other teams they're going to have to play a first round matchup may get SMU in the first round, may get Clemson, or may get Boise State. And frankly, they're going to be favored. Frankly, they'll be favored over them.
Yeah. There's a lot of different conversations that we can get into. I think it's a good point. Let's get into this weekend's games. We talked a lot about last weekend. Let's look at this weekend. I'm going to be putting up, I'll put up on the screen the games that we're picking. We're starting on Friday with the American Conference Championship because we're going to go in order of importance here. This one is a group of 5 that was close to being in consideration for that last playoff spot. Tulane and Army. Tulane's going off as a 5-point favorite right now. Over-under is set at 45.5. Army's coming off of a tough outing against Notre Dame, which they just proved that Notre Dame was too much for them. Kind of like how Notre Dame proved they were too much for Navy. It's been a great season. I think that they're going to have a hell of a showing next weekend when they get that one primetime spot against their arch rival in the Naval Academy. I know your pick, so I'll go ahead and let you talk about what your thoughts were on this one.
I don't know. Like, I was a believer in Army. Like I absolutely was. I thought that I thought that they could sneak their way into getting that 5th and final conference championship spot. But now after I saw that game against Notre Dame, I've lost all faith in the world. And Tulane is a program that's never really been like obviously top 10 in the country, but they've always been around that 20 to 30 range and 15 to 30 range where they've always at the end of the year seem to find themselves having a number next to their name because they win a big bowl game at the end of the year against a team that they shouldn't be, and they're just a frisky team. And I'll give the nod to Tulane there. Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and act like I've watched a single second of Tulane football this year because I haven't. But I really only see Army highlights, so I'll just ride Tulane here with the hot hand because after what I saw from Army against Notre Dame, I just have no faith.
I'm leaning that way as well. I was trying to pick Army. I was trying to think of all the reasons. Army's normally a really good pick. The academies are really good picks in the bowl games because it's hard to prepare for an option attack. But when they're in your conference, I feel like Tulane's probably done that plenty. When they played, I don't recall their schedule off the top of my head, but when they play Navy or when they prepare to play Army and Navy, now that they're both in the same conference, I feel like this is a team that's going to be prepared for it. And the more talented team in the group of 5 conferences normally tend to win. Army's very disciplined. They will never make an assignment error, but they don't have the talent that these other schools have because of the academic requirements. You don't have the opportunity to go to the NFL, all of this extra stuff that we're starting to see play out that's been playing out for a long time. I mean, Army hasn't been a national championship contender outside of this most recent season since the 1940s, I think, when everybody was fighting in World War II. So they had like one of the few teams that actually could still field anybody out there. We're both on Tulane and the American for possibly the 4 seed. We're going to move also game that's taking place on Friday. The Boise State Broncos took care of business, only loss on the season, coming to number 1 ranked Oregon. Possibly, they're the Big Ten championship favorite. We'll get to that game when we get to our Saturday slate. They're taking on the UNLV Rebels, who had 2 losses on the season, which is why they are as low ranked as they come into this game. I am really excited because the conference championship for the Mountain West does get played in a neutral site. They're going to be playing in Vegas. So I know that Boise's technically the home team with the higher seed, higher ranking. It's going to be a lot of UNLV fans. It's going to be really close. And damn it, you are right now, unless Tulane ends up winning, because I think Tulane is ranked higher. If Tulane loses to Army and UNLV beats Boise, the Rebels have played themselves back into the college football playoff. So they have everything to play for with this win. Not only the fact that it would give you an 11-win season and you would beat the team that everybody's talking about, you would ruin Ashton Genty's Heisman campaign right before it even gets off the ground. I don't know if it even has that much cadence because of what we saw Colorado do to Oklahoma State this past weekend and Travis Hunter doing what he does. But, man, thinking about that now, UNLV is a surprising spot because they have a lot of they control part of their own destiny, which is the fun part about this game. I'm going with the UNLV Rebels. What are you seeing in the Mountain West?
This is literally a playoff game. This game is literally a playoff game. It is not. Boise State loses, they're out. Plain and simple. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Alabama goes in above them. I'll even say Miami will jump them. You lose to UNLV. Unfortunately, with how poor the Mountain West has been this year and how much, frankly, Boise State has blown out bad teams and basically made close games against teams that they shouldn't have. Cough, Wyoming. It's Boise State UNLV. Boise State could easily be a 3 seed, possibly as high as a 3 seed, very easily high as a 3 seed, or not even be in the playoff. Plain and simple.
And looking at this, I'm going to make one quick correction. Tulane is not ranked, so if UNLV wins, if UNLV wins, Army has to lose, and UNLV would go in above Army.
I think UNLV would even have an argument over Army anyway. So I don't even think that'd be that hard of a take, frankly. But I'll take Boise State here. I still think that they're one of the better teams in the country. Obviously, JT is one of the most electric players in college football, especially out of the backfield we've seen in some time in college football. And that's really a kudos to what Boise State has done the past couple of years. Obviously, the fact that it's at Allegiant Stadium and that it is technically going to be roughly a home game for UNLV, not roughly, it will be a home game for UNLV. I still think Boise State will come out victorious here. I think that, frankly, the last couple of weeks they've been trying just to not shoot themselves in the foot. And make sure they just sneak into the Mountain West Championship and then just get hot at the right time. Obviously, the last couple of games of the season where they just had close games, I think that they were just trying to coast their way through to make sure that they didn't falter. Now that they have it, now it's literally winning it. That's literally the definition of the game is winning it. And I have to go with what I've seen this year, and Boise State is very, very electric, and GT is one of the most electric players in college football. So I'll ride Boise State and ride the hot hand.
One thing I will say, the UNLV games that I've watched, if you're not ready to come and play a physical football game, that defense is very physical. Like Boise State not only will have to rely on Genty, but they're going to have to be able to spread their carries. They have a pretty talented running back room behind him too. He just gets a majority of everything. I don't think that he's going to be able to hold up with the amount of times he's going to be taking big hits because he's a yards after carry guy because he's so short and he's so stocky and has such good balance that he runs through a lot of tackles. UNLV doesn't give you an opportunity with what I've seen out of the Rebels this year. They tackle pretty well. That's going to be an interesting matchup coming up on Friday night. I think that's probably going to be – this is the most that we're probably going to watch the American and the Mountain West Championship in 4 years. How long has it been since Cincinnati made it into the 14 playoff? I feel like that's the last time that was truly a game that we needed to pay attention to. Another win-in situation. Playoffs start early for a lot of these conferences. Big 12 championship, number 16 Iowa State going in as an underdog, 2-point underdog to the Big 12 championship. It's being played in Arlington. Dr. Pepper Big 12 championship game against number 15 Arizona State. Over-under set at 49.5. We've been talking about this. We said that the Big 12 champion, with as low as everything has been ranked, if it's Boise State winning the Mountain West, Big 12 champion will go in as that 4th spot and 5th conference championship spot, and they would not have the bye. They would play the opening round game as the 12 seed. Where are we sitting? Because Arizona State looked really, really good. against Arizona. Iowa State came back and ended up dominating, taking care of business against Kansas State. Both these teams had really disappointing parts of the season, but they're here. They're in the spot that they needed to be. Who do you trust more in a win-and-in situation?
Well, Arizona State is obviously the much hotter team right now. They've beaten some really good teams, obviously, frankly sneak their way into the Big 12 championship, because they're a team that 4 or 5 weeks ago we weren't even having that conversation about them being in that game, and here they are with being the favorites now. I'll take Iowa State here. I've seen what Iowa State has done against good teams like Iowa, good teams like Kansas State, obviously. I feel like they're a little more tested. Arizona was able to just walk through Arizona because Arizona was not a good team at all. And frankly, outside of the one wide receiver talent, McMillan, who's going to be an NFL talent, there isn't much NFL talent out there for Arizona. And obviously, Cam Scatterboo and Dillingham and company just ran it down their throat, and they had no answers. I think Iowa State is a little more disciplined. I think they're a little bit more ready. I have zero faith in either of these teams winning a playoff game. Let me put that very, very clear. I do not. I think that Iowa State or Arizona State are going to get shell shocked in the first round against a much inferior opponent. Superior opponent. But I'll take Iowa State here. I think Arizona State is kind of really haven't been tested that well, and when they have been tested, they've struggled. So I'll ride Iowa State.
I'm sticking with the hot team. It's a little bit nerve-wracking to me because Dillingham is in his first season. I know that this team is terrible on special teams. Like, Dillingham came out and said that himself. That was the whole issue at the very beginning of the season with his kicker. They're having the open tryouts. He had to come out and apologize because he knows that the kicking game falls back on one person. So if it's a close game, I'm a little bit more nervous. What I'm seeing, though, out of Arizona State is when they've had to win, they have not only taken care of business and gotten the win done, but they're winning in the way that is sustainable. They're running the football. They're taking shots when they need to based on the running game that it opens up. Cam Scatterboo is in his senior era, and he wants to go out and win the conference championship because this was a program that was very down and out, very downtrodden before coming into this conference. They were picked, I think, to finish second to last. And they handled business against BYU in a win-and-in situation. They handled business last week against Arizona, where it could have been a trap game against your in-state rival on the road, and they planted a pitchfork in midfield. Kenny Dillingham seems to be putting this team in the right spot. So we're going to be split on this Big 12 championship. It'll be the first game on Saturday, so get ready for fireworks early. I'm going to be at a wrestling tournament, but I'll have my iPad with me, so I'm going to be having my eyes on the games that are going on then. But it'll be interesting. It's a very close. All the best thing that we can say about championship weekend this year, all these games are within 4 points spread in the games that we're really going to be paying attention to. They're all going to be tight. They're all going to be hotly contested. And who's going to make the fewer mistakes? Coaching is going to be a big factor in this. So Dillingham versus Matt Campbell. It's going to be interesting who comes out on top in the Big 12. SEC is our next game up on the slate. Georgia, number 5 ranked, handled business against their in-state rival. Good old-fashioned hate against Georgia Tech in overtime slugfest that it was. And there's a guy that likes to do SEC content, and he was doing therapy. And then all of a sudden, Georgia Tech come in and say, where are you guys? Oh, we were just outside fighting in the parking lot. It's been 6 hours. Oh, really? It felt like 4 years. That was what a game to kick off rivalry weekend. And I think Georgia Tech has a lot to do. They're going to do a lot in that rivalry moving forward. It scared me a little bit with Georgia. And it's hard when you play the same team two times in a year. But what did we see the last time that Texas played Georgia? Their quarterback struggled in the big moment at home, wasn't able to do anything against this very talented defense. And when they had to drive the football, they couldn't. I will say the same thing about Georgia's offense. When Georgia didn't get a short field, they were not having Carson Beck lead them on these massive drives. So I'm a little bit wary, but this is Texas's first season in the SEC. They've never been to Atlanta before. Georgia's been there. They've done that. They've handled business against the greatest coach in college football. And now they have what's supposed to be the heir apparent on the sidelines in Kirby Smart. I think I'm rolling Bulldogs in this one.
I mean, I don't hate it. I think this game could go either way, frankly. I find it very, very difficult to beat a team twice in a row, especially, I mean, we talked about that Georgia game, Texas game back in, what was it, September? Or
I think October? It was the first game of October.
Early October. And I remember specifically having the conversation of, should Georgia or should Texas start Arch Manning? Because obviously Quinn Ewers had not had a lot of games underneath him at that point, and had really not been under the lights that much. And I think now that he's gotten some big wins under his belt, obviously over Florida, over Texas A&M this past weekend, and had a little bit more time to settle down into his spot of being obviously the guy at Texas. I think it's really helped him a lot, and I think it's a much different team than we saw when Georgia beat Texas in October. So I'll ride Texas here. Like I said, Carson. I mean, look, Georgia is a very good, solid defensive team. I still struggle with thinking that Carson Beck is going to continue to win this football game, because I don't believe in him. I think that he's played himself out of literally being a first-round pick in the NFL draft. Frankly, he was going to be the consensus number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft next year, and frankly, he may not even be a first-rounder this year. So I will stick with Texas here and believe in the Longhorns.
All right, it's going to be it's right in the middle of the day. I should be done with my tournament by then, so that might be the first game I get to watch at home. Really quick, shout out to the state of Ohio for owning the MAC this season. Ohio versus Miami of Ohio. If you want my breakdown and my pick of that game, go check out the Ohio Sports Talk episode that I hosted with Jordan last night. Next game up, these games will be taking place at the same time. So if you're like me and my family, know where the back button is, because you're going to want to be keeping an eye on both. Big Ten championship first. Penn State, number 3. They get the benefit of Michigan upsetting Ohio State last weekend, and now they're elevated into this spot with the chance, if they can handle business, if James Franklin can beat a big game that is not named Ohio State and beat Dylan Gabriel and this Dan Lanning team that's been on an absolute tear, just coming off they finally got the monkey off their back beating Washington, who they lost to twice last season. They have the chance to be the number 1 seed in the playoff. I think that the Big Ten champion, no matter what else happens, is going to be the number 1 seed. I think that they would be I think they would put them up above Texas. It'd be difficult if they both won, but I don't know. I think that they might be able to lean Big Ten, because Big Ten has a little bit better of a roster with records. Who knows? That's a conversation for another day. Thinking about this game specifically and who's going to win, we are actually in agreement on this one. It's hard for me to trust James Franklin at all. And in this moment, this is the biggest moment going to Indianapolis. This is the first time he's been there since 2016. They have been in the conference championship before. Again, they didn't play Ohio State in that situation. If you don't play Ohio State and Michigan, they seem to take care of business due to the Nittany Lions. And they have a lot of very talented players. This is not a turn around and hand the ball off 3 times to your fullback type of team. They will get out there and score some points. Dylan Gabriel and Dan Lanning, though, just earned my trust all season. They had chances to falter. They had games where they were close and shouldn't have been. Idaho comes to mind. But ever since they kind of figured themselves out on the offensive line, this is a different team. They have the oldest quarterback in college football who's going to walk out of here with his football PhD and probably played himself into maybe the end of the first round, early second round pick for Sundays next season. But I'm going with Oregon. I think the Ducks fly. Ducks fly together.
Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'll take Oregon as well. Oregon is a far superior team. James Franklin has not won the big game yet. I will wait until he proves me wrong, plain and simple. And Penn State, like I said, backed into this game because of what Ohio State did, unfortunately. So we didn't get the rematch we were wanting to with Oregon, Ohio State. Instead, we get Penn State seeing that if they're for real or not, because I think this is going to be a game to show me whether or not if Penn State gets their absolute breaks beat in this weekend, they're first round exit too. I'll even say that. I'll even go as far as that, because I will have zero faith in James Franklin will be able to win a big game if he doesn't even make this game a game.
Do you think that he still ends up getting the 5 seed if they lose the Big Ten championship?
I think Notre Dame will be a 5 seed. I'm almost positive they'll be.
Do you think they would put? Well,
they're already ahead of them. They're the 5th ranked team currently, or the 6th ranked team. And if Georgia loses, if Penn State loses, I think that Notre Dame just slides right there. That they're the next team, I guess. I don't know. I don't understand.
That would give Notre Dame a home playoff game. That ought to piss a lot of people off this first.
I mean, I don't think that's right. And frankly, I don't think Notre Dame has really played anybody that's been worth a shit. Frankly.
And they have the worst loss of any team that's going to be in the playoff. They lost to Northern Illinois at home.
Exactly. So I'm not like going to sit here and act like I'm liking what I'm saying, because I'm not. I don't think that they're the next team, the 5th best team. But I do think that based upon what they're showing, and based upon what I've seen, is that A, Alabama will be in the playoff no matter what, and B, Notre Dame is probably going to be the next team, unfortunately, out of the top 4.
You're making sense. It makes sense. I'm just saying that
I don't want to make sense.
that is the one team that is the one team that every other team is looking at like, fuck you. No, you cannot make the playoff as an independent. Join a conference. You can't just play an ACC schedule. Join the conference and play in the conference championship game. Speaking of the ACC, Dabo, that would be just I think that would be the worst thing for this entire committee is if Clemson ends up winning this game. Not necessarily that they think the Ponies are going to go on this magical run, but if you have to put in Clemson after the season that they put out there, it would be like having to put in if Texas A&M handled business, it would having to put a team in like that that's not the best representative of your conference. You're not going to get any extra money as they go to these neutral site bowl games. You get more money the more rounds you go into the playoff. They want SMU because at least maybe there's a little bit of a shot, and at least then you probably get one of those early buys and you play the neutral site no matter what. Dabo could be the downfall of this conference, and we've said a lot about him. We've kind of I know I went back and forth on my take about Clemson. I said that they're never going to win in this era because they refused to bring in, they brought in one transfer kid. That's only third lowest behind the two service academies, and Dabo refuses to adopt to the NIL, yet here they are.
Yeah, like I said, here they are with a chance to not only maybe even get a bye. Like that's not even let's not sugarcoat it. Clemson win this game, they're in the conversation for having a bye. Like you could have the argument
to come back down to the Mountain West game if they
were
to get a bye
or the Big 12, depending on if Iowa State or Arizona State it comes down to a couple of different things, but they very easily have a bye. Like there is a pathway for Clemson to bye, and it's sickening because this team lost last week. This team lost last week, right, to a South Carolina team that obviously South Carolina's had a great year, and they're a team that had a great run to the end of the season. It's kind of sad that they're not in the mix, unfortunately, but they started off way too cold. But Clemson, man. I don't know what it is, but like I think the same conversation we had about Kirby Smart and Georgia's, and I'll throw Dabo Swinney and Clemson. He kind of knows what it takes to win the game. He kind of knows what it takes to win the ACC championship. And unlike Texas with SEC, where Texas has been in Big 12 championship, year after year, SMU is brand fucking new to the Power Four. They're brand new to the Power Four. They've been in lower level conferences their entire run, and now that they're with a chance to obviously get a bye, and frankly, I would have loved Miami's chances in this game against both these teams, but they shot themselves in the foot out of the playoff. But like, I see a world where Clemson wins this. I really do. Like it's weird saying that after one week later after losing that this team is going to be the last team in the playoff, but I see it. I really do, and I think that Clemson is the first round exit no matter what. But like, I don't know. I think that they can squeeze through. So I will take the bait, and I will ride Clemson and Dabo Swinney winning another big game with playoff chances on the line, because that's one thing Dabo did for a lot of years there is when they played in the ACC championship with a chance to make the top four, obviously when the college football playoff was 4 teams, like they always would come in clutch and just demolish their opponent. Like that's just something that they did with Trevor Lawrence. That's something they did with redacted name. It's just something that Dabo Swinney has done. And so I will back my way into weirdly thinking that Clemson will be a playoff team. And so I will take Clemson.
All right. I'm going with SMU. I want the story. I think that they are that good of a team that they're probably just going to go out there and handle business, because I don't think Clemson has the talent this year. I don't know what SMU has in the future. This might be the best thing for them if they can win this game and make it to the playoff. Because again, we talked about it last week too, but that is your recruiting tool for the future. Just like how Michigan used this last weekend and Sherrod Moore using his post-game press conference to, put, if you come here, I'm going to give you the spotlight. I'm going to let you speak on ESPN, on ABC, nationally televised on Fox, and I'm going to let you be out there in front of the camera, and I'm going to back you up, and this is how we win football games, and we know who we are. I think SMU, if they are able to win this game, dethrone what has been the champion of the ACC for so long, going all the way back to Deshaun before all the other issues and everything else that happened, this would be a poetic story for SMU to come into the conference in the first year and upset the guy that's on the throne. This is what we wanted for a lot of these conferences. That's why everybody wanted the rematch with Ohio State and Oregon, because that's been, they haven't won the conference in the last 4 years because Michigan's been able to beat them. But that is like the measuring stick. You want to see them play the best team in the conference when these new teams come in, and we have a chance of that here. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say, yeah, I'll stick my neck out there. I'll put my neck out there on the line for the boys out there in Dallas. I'm going SMU Ponies. Championship weekend's always one of my favorites, so be glued to the TV all weekend.
Based upon what we've picked, my 4 buys are going to be, and just reminding everybody what I did. I think Oregon will be the number 1 seed. I have them winning, obviously. I have Texas as the number 2 seed, beating Georgia. My 3 seed will be Boise State having the bye, beating UNLV. And my 4 seed, I will say that Clemson gets a nod above Iowa State. And Iowa State is the last team in because Clemson will have a better win over SMU. So I'll say Clemson is the fourth bye, with Iowa State being the 5th conference champion in the last seed.
Okay. With the way that I ended up picking, let's see. I would have UNLV would be the Mountain West champions. So that means that Iowa State possibly has the ability to get that 4th spot. So I would have SMU, Oregon, Georgia, and Arizona State. And then UNLV would be the last conference champion that would not get the bye because they would be the lowest ranked of any of the conference champions left. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out. Let us know who you have more faith in when you guys watch this. If you're watching the replay, if you're checking it out live, drop it in the comments. What you think? Let's change gears a little bit before we get into the NFL football and talk about there's been a lot of movement.